My, good, you're here. I am so excited. Guess what? I hope this isn't about your podcast again. Why, did you finally listen to it?
Da 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 da. Da 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 da. Da 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 da. The Groomer Next Door production. You're listening to BYOTP Radio. Coming up next, the Groomer Next Door. The Groomer Next Door podcast.
Dun, 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 dun.
Hello, Pups and Kittens, and welcome to another fun-filled episode of The Groomer Next Door. I'm your host, Chris Green. Sitting next to me, as always, is the fabulous Sarah.
Hello.
I have to actually take you and drag you out of the house to do the podcast today because, well, I'm going to bury the lead and tell you in the weekly roundup. This week, we have Deb Davis from Paws With A Cause. Great organization out of Michigan that I just was so excited to be able to talk to them because they do so much for people with special needs. And with that, let's go into the fact of the week. Service dogs are not pets. Service animals are defined by the Americans with Disabilities Act, the ADA, as dogs that are individually trained to do work or perform tasks for a person with a disability. Or, as Paul Bowskill, General Manager of Service Dogs America, says, they are an extension of the person who has the disability. Good point. Well, with that, let's dive into the weekly roundup.
The weekly roundup. Yeehaw.
So much to cover. Well, you know, for once, this happened on a Saturday morning and not right after the podcast was released.
Right.
So, one person that is absolutely just a doll. Her name is Stephanie. She's over at the Ozark Actors Theater. She gives me a call this morning and says, I'm over at Giddy Goat right here in Raleigh. And the baristas had seen a kitten and were wondering what to do. So they picked up the kitten, brought it in, put a nice bed together, but they don't know what they're going to do with it because they can't keep it. And at the beginning, I was like, well, how old? And, a couple questions. And I was starting to wonder, this is like a 2-week-old kitten. So Sarah's sitting right next to me at this point, and I'm like, okay, let's see what we can do. So I was like, okay, well, we're on our way. And again, this is a Saturday morning, not a Sunday or right after the podcast release type of thing, which is weird. We went over to Giddy Goat right away, and the kitten is actually a little bit older. Would you agree, about 5 weeks old?
I would say about 5 weeks.
Yeah, about 5 weeks old. Great personality. Has kind of a calico look to her, but it's really hard to define. Cats can be very tricky. So, one of those things, hey, doesn't matter gender, coming home with us.
We looked around the area to see if there's going to be another cat or another kitten. Sometimes the mom has to go away to go hunt and bring food back for the babies, or go eat herself, so therefore she can have milk for her babies. But you mentioned something that the cat smelled like perfume.
Right.
And I was like, well, it could have been on the clothes, and nobody was wearing perfume that day.
I thought the same thing. I thought, well, maybe the two baristas, but no, they're not going to have perfume on their clothes.
Not heavy perfume to where because they're making drinks. And we looked around, and I didn't see any cats sitting there staring at us.
No.
Because that's what cats would do. They're waiting for their baby to get put back, and they take a far enough stance away. Didn't see that.
No.
And apparently they heard the kitten since yesterday. Now, if the kitten has gone without food for 24 hours, that cat's going to be hungry.
Right.
We picked up the cat. Thank you, Stephanie, for the $20 donation that you gave us. It helped buy canned cat food and the milk for the baby.
Right.
Thank you. We went to Walmart, got that stuff, and we tried to bottle feed.
That went really, really interesting.
This hasn't happened before, so that's why I kind of know that this cat's old enough to. Doesn't absolutely have to have nursing.
Right. Does not have to be bottle fed.
Yeah, it does not have to be bottle fed. It chewed off the nipple off the bottle.
And quickly, not even just 5 seconds.
2 bites and it was gone.
How many licks does it take to get to the bottom of the nipple?
I'm like, there goes $2.
Yep.
So I got up and got some of the canned kitten food, mixed it up with some of the milk, and holy cow, that cat inhaled it.
And that video, we went live on Facebook on the Groomer Next Door podcast. We went live, and so that video is up on Facebook if you're curious to watch that. And we'll go live quite a few more times.
Yeah, the kitten inhaled it. It's so hilarious.
Purrs, meows.
The poor thing is thin.
Yeah.
She's pretty thin, and give it a couple days, she'll fatten up.
Oh yeah.
Especially with the food that we have for her.
Well, not only that, but there's also more. Starting on Monday.
Oh yeah. I'm gonna be sad. I'm gonna be so sad. I'm gonna be happy, but I'm gonna be sad.
Well, there's a 2-part to that. Which part do you want to go with? Do you want to go with the good or the bad? On Monday, we will get 2 more kittens as well.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
That's gonna be fun.
Yeah. So we'll get 2 more kittens as well. So we've named the one that we picked up today, little Giddy. Or if it is a girl, as I suspect it is, we're gonna, it could be short for Gigi, Giddy Goat. And then Monday we have 2 friends that are going to be coming to us. That story was kind of interesting. Is it the same one I'm thinking of where they needed to actually relinquish the kittens, or is this something else?
Well, she was having a hard time finding homes for them, and she doesn't have the time to vet, and she doesn't have time to do the research on these adopters. So she wanted to give it to somebody who is going to be a lot more meticulous finding homes for these cats, because she's really, really attached to them.
Do we know how old?
8 weeks.
Okay, so a little older.
Yeah, so they're ready for a home.
Okay.
So we'll do what we can to get them fixed and such, and get them ready for adoption or transfer or some sort.
Cool. And then today as well.
Yeah, like an hour before we were supposed to be, hour and a half before we were supposed to be at our shop, we got the call about the kitten. But we had plans to meet somebody at our shop at noon today, Saturday, to meet and greet Bagheera and Spencer, our 2 foster cats. Spencer, poor dude, man. He does wonderful once he gets used to the environment, and once he gets used to the situation, he'll be fine. I mean, he loves our house. He's cool. He liked his adopted house that he went to. Yeah, he was totally fine at his house and loved it and enjoyed enjoyed himself. But Bagheera, the little ham that he is, he wanted some petting, and he wanted his cheeks scratched, his chin scratched, his butt scratched.
More like base of the tail.
Well, not the butt. And
it's above the butt.
He loved it. Oh, he loved it so much, and they thought he was so great. And they wanted a black cat, because black cats are harder to place in homes. And he showed pretty good to them.
Yeah, he did a good job showing. Spencer went into the closet actually, and was like, "Nope, I'm done." I think Spencer's going to be one of the harder ones to find another forever home for. But at the time, I mean, right now, Bagheera will be adopted, pending. We had to hold the adoption because he needs his flea treatment, and he's a little bit more unique. He can't just have the topical. He has to have the special one that it's a powder that you put in the food. I think it's a 3-day, but I could be wrong.
Yeah.
But he'll have to have that, and then he'll have his treatment, and then by probably Wednesday of next week, he will be able to be picked up and go to his new home.
Yeah, we have everybody do a trial base where they take care of them, they feed them, they enjoy this company, deal with the cat litter, everything else, and then if they want to keep them, not a problem. He's yours. Enjoy it. But if you have any problems, you bring him back.
Right.
Even if it's 2 years from now, bring him back.
Right.
We'll take care of him. It's not a big deal. I'm excited for Bagheera. I really am. They seem to really like him, and they really wanted him. I still
think it's been 9 months since we first got him.
Has it really been that long?
I think it has. Yeah, Bagheera's been a long term. I mean, we had to wait quite a while to see about rehabbing his leg, see if that would actually fuse back, if the muscle would fuse.
And it wouldn't.
And then the actual amputation, that was a lot of time. And then rehab, being able to make sure he healed, and no, paralysis or issues that would come up. So that's gonna be a long time of working with him, and he's turned out to be great. I mean, he talks to you and everything.
I told him, don't be fooled by his missing leg. He will jump, and he will get on top of the dresser. He will get to the windowsill. He will do whatever he can to look outside. He will wrap himself around your leg until you give him a piece of chicken that you're cooking.
Right? Oh yeah. So that's kind of everything there. Life at the new shop has been absolutely crazy. So that's another.
It's been wonderful.
It has been wonderful. It has been very, very. I would go still with crazy though. I mean, it's a lot of things going on at once. Luckily, no curveballs, so that's been nice. And with that, we have actually 2, not just one, but we have 2 dog food recalls to announce. Alright, well, we haven't had one of these for a while. The last one was on May 5th, so it's kind of been one of those slow month kind of things, which has been good, but unfortunately we have what I like to call the Cole Harrington experience. And why I say it that way is I give all the credit to Cole Harrington, the director of Pet Fooled, for this, because ever since that movie came out, these recalls have been coming in by the avalanche. Everybody is so worried about, we got a problem. So that's, I give this to him, and I've even told him that personally. I'm like, this is all because of you, and good for you. So on June 10th, which was last Sunday, the podcast had already been released, so obviously I couldn't announce it then. The United Pet Group, a division of Spectrum Brands Incorporation, was voluntarily recalling multiple brands of rawhide dog chews products due to chemical contamination. That is never, ever good.
Well, most rawhides are all contaminated with some kind of chemical of some sort. They bleach them, they do all kinds of stuff.
So there's like multitude of different ones. Good in Food, Healthy Hide, Good and Fit, American Beef Hide, Healthy Hide, Digestees. What is recalled? There's multiple links. American Bee Hide, Digestive, the ones I just mentioned. The recall was initiated under the United Pets Group realized specific rawhide chews manufacturing facility in Mexico, and this is weird, and Colombia, as well as one of the suppliers in Brazil, were using a quaternary ammonium compound mixture as a preceding aid in the manufacturing of rawhide chews. The compound is an antimicrobial chemical that is approved for cleaning food processing equipment, but it had not been approved in the United States as processing aid in the production of rawhide chews for dogs. United Pet Groups received very limited reports of pet illness, which that really catches me. Limited. There was at least one. That's bad enough. There's limited is still more than one.
Well, when they talk about such a huge
recall.
No, just a huge amount of people.
Right.
That buy this particular brand, a limited might mean a couple thousand.
Right.
It's still a lot to us.
Of pet illnesses based on the volume of possibly affected rawhide chew products manufactured and distributed. The primary complaint received from consumers was that the affected product had an unpleasant odor. Diarrhea and vomiting were also reported. Exposure to quaternary ammonium compounds through direct ingestion may cause the following symptoms in dogs: reduced appetite, a gastric irritation, including diarrhea and vomiting. These symptoms may require treatment by a veterinarian depending on the severity. Let's see, anything major? The affected product was distributed nationwide from the United Pet Groups. It's out of Edwardsville, Illinois distribution facility and was delivered to consumers through various retail, including online outlets. So that's the first one that we have, which, if that's not bad enough, I mean, that was pretty bad. This one came out on the 15th, and it is Loving Pets of Cranberry, New Jersey is voluntarily recalling a limited number of dog treats because of potential to be contaminated with salmonella.
Ooh.
Ouch! That is really inexcusable. Now, for all of you, I'll just kind of do a simple recall. We all know what salmonella is, so I am not going to go through that. The recalled products and lot numbers include the Loving Pets Barksters item number 5700 sweet pea and chicken, the Loving Pet Barksters brown rice and chicken, Loving Pets Puffsters snack chips, Loving Pets Puffsters snack chips, the banana and chicken, apple and chicken. Those are two separate ones. The snack chips, which are sweet potato and chicken. The snack chips that are cranberry and chicken. Wholehearted chicken and apple puff treats. No illnesses, injuries, or complaints have been reported at this time, but if for some reason you have these products, take them back to the store immediately. All this and more will be in the description page of the podcast so you can cross-reference. And that concludes this week's Pet Food Recall.
Oh, hello. Hold on a sec. Dad, we have a guest on the podcast.
This week we are joined by Deb Davis. She is the community outreach spokesperson for a great organization called Paws With A Cause. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, you're most welcome. Thanks so much for having me on.
Oh, it's a pleasure. It is an absolute pleasure to actually talk to you. I sat down and I was looking at all the things you guys do, and it is really massive. And I was just like, oh my God, you guys are awesome.
Well, thanks. We're a little biased, but we think our clients are awesome as well.
Well, let's start off with my favorite part of every interview, and that is the origin story. So tell us all about the origin of how Paws With A Cause started.
Well, being that we're a national nonprofit organization, we enhance the independence and quality of life for people with disabilities through custom-trained assistance dogs. Our CEO and co-founder back in the late 1970s, was training Doberman Pinschers for show dogs. Mm-hmm. And he was also his quote-unquote real job, as he says, was he was a delivery person for a paper manufacturing company. And one of the customers that he delivered to had a shipping and receiving clerk that was deaf. And so one day they were talking back and forth in sign language, and the deaf member, Marty was his name, was asking our CEO and co-founder, Mike, if he had ever trained a dog to act as a hearing dog, to respond to sounds. Marty and his wife, Diane, were both hearing impaired, deaf. Marty was deaf, Diane was hearing impaired, and they had just adopted a hearing impaired 3-year-old child. So you can imagine the challenges that they were facing. So they were looking at resources, and they had read an article in a magazine about hearing dogs. And the article was about an organization out in Colorado. They would have to travel from Michigan to Colorado at their own expense and stay out there for 2 weeks at their own expense and get to learn to know a completely strange dog. And they really wanted their own dog trained. So that's when they asked Mike if he'd ever considered or ever done any training like that. Well, Mike had not, but he loved a challenge. So he would go over for a training session and work with their Karen Terrier dog named Crystal, and Crystal would start responding when the phone rang. They would go outside, they would have neighbors call. Back then anything wasn't digital. Nobody had a cell phone on them. You literally had to have your neighbor call you and have the old-fashioned rotary phone ring and make the big old blaring noise, and that's what they taught the first hearing dog to respond to. So
Wow.
each week Mike would go back to continue training, and there would be another deaf couple with their dog saying, can you help us? Can you train our dog? So the need actually born the organization. Mike nor his late wife Candy, neither one of them were looking to start a nonprofit or do anything other than their regular daily jobs, but there was a niche here. There was a need. There was a need out there to help people that was not being fulfilled. So they started training the dogs in the evening, and Candy would do the book work and thank you letters for donations, and all while both working full-time jobs. Because again, they weren't looking to start a business. But as the requests started coming in and people wanted their dog trained to respond to sounds such as, again, the baby crying, a toddler calling mom's name, an oven timer, the phone ringing, the smoke alarm, if you can imagine living in a hearing impaired or deaf world and not being able to hear any of those sounds, it's quite a scary situation. So Mike would train the dogs to respond to the sounds, go get the person and lead the person to the sound so the person knows whether it's the baby crying or the doorbell ringing or the oven timer. And as the requests started coming in, other people would say, well, could you teach my dog to pick things up for me because I can't bend over? Or could you teach my dog to pick my cane up for me when it falls? So again, different needs born the further development of the organization.
Wow. That is really cool. I mean, and one of the things that I think probably a lot of people worry about is, gosh, I hope I don't lose my hearing. I hope I don't lose my sight because, well, I can imagine. So to have to adapt to that life would be crazy.
We rely on both of those main senses so much in our everyday lives, we can't even imagine what it means to live without either one of them.
Right. Now, with the evolution of Paws With A Cause, now at this stage, what does Paws With A Cause do?
We not only still train those hearing dogs that made our organization begin, but we also train service dogs for people with physical disabilities to complete those tasks, as I mentioned before, to pick up dropped objects, to retrieve canes that might have fallen. But those service dogs can also help pull a manual wheelchair and save the energy and the exertion of the energy and the wear and tear on someone's shoulders or rotator cuffs. Those service dogs can be trained to open interior doors inside a hallway, inside a house, inside a building. They can be taught to push the handicap access buttons on the exterior of commercial doorways to open that door so someone could then walk through or push their wheelchair through. So those service dogs can be trained to do a multitude of physical tasks. And then we also train seizure response dogs for people with epilepsy. The dogs respond when a person has a seizure they could press an emergency alert button that could call 911 or alert a neighbor or a spouse. They could retrieve medicine on command. So that client could then take that medicine either during or right after a seizure that can lessen the seizure's severity or length of the seizure. And that seizure response dog can also be taught to pull an emergency alert cord that could be hanging on the client's belt so someone else in the other part of the house could know that the client might need some help right there. And then we also train, our last discipline that we train is a service dog for child with autism. And it's more for the families living with autism because we all know that the family is the strongest unit in living with autism. It's the entire family. It encompasses the entire family. So our service dogs for the families and children living with autism can be a great bridge in their relationship as well as provide that service function as well.
Wow. I mean, I've said it so many times in so many different circumstances, but it always shocks me just how a dog can be so useful. And then it makes me sad because I think of all the people out there who don't want to even get up and do anything with their life, and here these dogs are they are so needed and so active, and it always shocks me to be able to talk to people like yourself who see these dogs in action all the time. That is just, it's amazing to me.
Yep, they're very much wanted. They're very much needed, and they're very much a part of the client's world. Not only just their life, but their world, their everyday life.
Mm-hmm.
And to say that these dogs are lifesavers is a true statement. We've had several clients whose dog has saved their life, whether it's on a daily basis by blocking them from walking off a curb or from pushing the alert button to summon 911 after the client could have fallen and hit their head. And it's very obvious that they need the help. They tell their dog to go get help, and the dog goes and pushes the emergency alert button that summons 911 assistance. They literally do save lives.
Man. And, what's interesting to me is 40% of the dogs that you guys have that go out actually are for seizure response type of dogs. And that's almost half of the dogs are for just that alone. And that's what shocks me as well.
Mm-hmm. One of the biggest reasons that is because a lot of people with disabilities, it depends on the disabilities, but everyone wants to be more independent in life. And it depends on the severity of the disability, but it also depends on your choices in life. Let's say your lifestyle, whether you're married, whether you're younger and living in a dorm in a dormitory at a college, whether you have a roommate, whether you live alone. It just happens to be coincidental, but that 40% has just been within the past 5 or 6 years that has increased to be that many. We have several people that do want to become independent, that do want to live on their own, but because of their epilepsy, they're absolutely scared that they could have a seizure in the middle of the night and never wake up.
Mm-hmm.
There's sudden death from SUDEP, they call it, from seizures, and that's exactly it, is you literally smother in your own pillow because you've lost consciousness and you cannot right yourself and have the wherewithal to pull your head and your face out of your pillow. But if you're single, you don't have that spouse next to you who's going to automatically be alerted that something's going on and be able to roll you over. So thereby, that increases your dependence on everyone else. So it makes sense that there's such a need for the seizure response dogs for those people that do want to live independently and don't want to have to stay living with mom or dad or constantly have a roommate or never be able to live or sleep by themselves because they literally are afraid of never waking up. So those dogs are there. They respond to the seizures. They can wake the person up so they're not going to smother into their pillow. So it is a widely needed service.
And much appreciated as well. Now,
absolutely.
Does Paws with a Cause use specific breeds, or is it just whatever a breeder is actually working with at the time?
We're not necessarily breed specific, but we have a lot of success with golden retrievers and Labrador retrievers, mostly because of their God-given talent of retrieving.
Mm-hmm.
They love to have something in their mouth. They love to please. They've got a great work ethic. And all of those traits of those two breeds just fit together well for our needs. We do train poodles for our clients who would have an allergy toward dogs, and poodles are extremely smart. They pick things up really well, both literally and figuratively. And for our hearing dogs, we use some of the smaller breeds, such as Papillons, or we'll use some miniature poodles or some 50-50 mixes of some of the smaller breeds. Because as much as I love my 64-pound golden retriever, I don't necessarily want her jumping on my chest in the morning to say, it's time to get up, it's time to get up. That's kind of a nicer morning when it's a little 3-pound Papillon telling you that.
I can relate. I have a 70 to 75 pound Akita, and she's just like that. She's like, hey, you're awake. It's time for you to love me. Now, with that,
it's time to pay attention to me.
Right? And then, of course, you get up, and then the cats are saying, well, now it's my turn. At least that's how it is in my house. Now, with the same question on breeds, do you have specific breeders that you use, or is it kind of one of those, is there kind of a different kind of setup that you have?
We do have several breeders across the country who are very generous to us and either donate stud or female services and or the dogs themselves. We have developed our own breeding program over the past 10 years. We used to rescue from animal shelters and humane societies, but we found that very few of those dogs ever got all the way through simply because of medical issues that were unknown in their lineage. So we turned our attention and resources toward developing our breeding program to increase our success rate, as well as to have that knowledge to know that Fido came from this dam and this sire, and we got great results for these traits out of this litter, et cetera, because not all dogs are created equal. They, like people, have individual personalities. They also have individual work ethics. So Fido could be one of the best workers in the world, but there could be somebody else in his litter or someone else in the kennel next door that maybe is just saying, I'm not going to work that hard. So we look to see if we can match somebody that has a more sedentary lifestyle for that non-aggressive worker, let's say, whereas Fido's got the fantastic work ethic and fantastic stamina to be paired with someone who has a very active lifestyle. So our breeding program allows us that flexibility to be able to custom train and custom fit that dog for a client's needs.
That's always helpful. That is helpful. I mean, I personally am always one of those fans, and I can see what you're going to. I'm always one of those that just love shelters across America, considering there's so many, shelters that it is just a short window and it's a kill shelter. And, that's my whole thing. It's how do we get those dogs, to the right homes instead of just the one only option because of overcrowding, that's euthanizing. So, I understand where you're coming from. I'm such a proprietor of shelters. Now, let's go on to some of your programs, because you have quite a lot of programs, and they're so unique, and I find it very interesting. Now, you have the assistance dog training program. So let us know all about that program and what it entails.
Well, that's exactly what we've been talking about with the different kinds of assistance dogs that there are. We train 4 different disciplines. The service dog, the hearing dog, the seizure response dog, and the service dog for the children with autism. And that basically is what our trainers train all of our dogs to become, based on that client's needs.
All right. Now, puppy raisers. I was kind of interested. I was like, okay, what is the puppy raiser?
That is one of the most important aspects of our entire program, because that's where it all begins. From including one other program that you're probably going to allude to, but I'll start there with the breeding host and our breeding program. As I mentioned before, each one of our female and male dogs that are in our breeding program are hosted by a volunteer family. So they live in that home. They are responsible for basic obedience, grooming, upkeep, medical needs, bringing them in when we have a date scheduled. And then for those families that take on the responsibility of housing the female breeding stock dogs, they actually whelp those puppies in their homes. Those are all located right around our headquarters here, just south of Grand Rapids, Michigan. So our vet is available, and our breeding coordinator is available for assistance with those whelping litters. And then what the volunteers do is for the first 3 weeks, we do not touch or interact with the puppies at all. Their communication, their obedience comes from mom and Mother Nature. So we don't interact at all. We let them know that there's humans around. They obviously smell them because we take care of the litter, we clean up the pen, we feed the mom, et cetera, but we let nature take care of all that, and we let mom nurture that litter. At 3 weeks of age, we start introducing humans to the puppy. Sight, smell, touch, sound. We need them to know that their interaction with humans is a trusting relationship, that good things are going to come from all those different sights, sounds, and smells of humans. So for those next 5 weeks until they're 8 weeks of age, that breeding host home has the responsibility of handling them, talking to them. We, believe it or not, we give them exercise toys, not just fun little dog toys or fun little squeaky toys, but things that they can get used to. The sights and sounds of metal, the sights and sounds of plastic, the sights and sound of material. Because these are going to be objects in their future that they quite honestly or obviously could need to retrieve for their client. So we get them used to those sights and sounds as early as possible. So once those puppies are 8 weeks old, then they get transferred to a different volunteer, and that's our foster puppy raiser that you mentioned before. This is another group of volunteers that will raise and train that puppy from the time it's 8 weeks old up until the time it's about 12 months old when it comes back to us for training. And during that first year of their life, those volunteers are responsible for basic obedience. We teach them. They come to classes. They learn how to train their dog. So they're responsible for basic obedience over that first year, as well as socialization, taking that puppy out in as many different public places as is comfortable and as is safe. Obviously, the younger the puppy, the more startling a large crowd group environment is going to be. So it's very important for our raisers to know their dog, to know their dog's capacity for stimuli, and then to gauge how much more they're able to take the dogs out in public as they get older. So for that very first year of their lives, these puppies are raised for 8 weeks by one volunteer family, introduced to humans as a trusting being in their life, and then they're raised by a second family until they're 1 year old.
Wow. A lot goes into it. And you know, the thing that I always look at is, man, you get so attached to that dog, especially, you know, having them 12 months, you really get attached. We know from, you know, just fostering alone, you can get really attached to those dogs. I mean, you know, in our case, cats as well. You hate to see them go.
Absolutely.
Boy. But
Yep.
it's a good program. Now,
it's a tough day when they have to turn their foster puppies in. It is a tough day.
I
but
bet.
It's bittersweet.
Now,
yep.
when they actually turn them in, is there a, you know, brand new, you know, puppy ready for them to start over with?
We can so arrange that. It is one of the best things that we kind of joke about, but there are puppies available. We're always looking for volunteer raisers, so sometimes we'll actually overlap. We'll have a family get their next puppy maybe 2 weeks before the older one comes in, so they can have 2 weeks where they have both puppies there, the older one and the younger one. And then when they bring the older one in, they really don't have that lapse or that void. So a lot of families choose to handle it that way.
Well, that's a smart way. I mean, because that void is crazy. It is really strange when that dog is there, and then the next day it's off serving, you know, somebody who needs them.
Yep.
Well, my next one, and you know, I've never been able to talk to anybody about this type of program, and I've always been very interested in it. And it just, you know, just so happened you actually do this, and that's the Paws Prison Partners.
Okay.
Please explain. I'm very interested in the program, and you know, again, I've seen this, you know, around different organizations will have this. I like to know what you guys do and how this program actually works.
Absolutely. It is actually one of the newer things that we're doing. We've only been doing this for about 4 years. And what this is in that aforementioned trail or path of the puppy, once they've been to their breeding host home and then to their foster puppy home, the puppy comes back to our training center here in West Michigan, and it's here for about a week. And we'll vet it through our vet department. We'll make sure it's up to date on its shots. We'll do heartworm tests, what have you. So we'll put it through the vetting process, and then it's off to prison. And what that means is we have 6 prisons here in the state of Michigan, where our headquarters are, that we have developed a relationship with, a partnership with, in that they themselves, the prisons, select the prisoners who have earned the right to do the job of dog trainer. It's just like anything else within the prison walls, whether you're making kitchen cabinets, whether you're making clothing. Each different prison has its own strengths, let's say. And so it's one of the jobs, one of the training jobs within the prison walls. So we take the dogs in. All of the dogs that go to prison are between 12 and 14 months of age when they arrive. And what the prisoner's job then is training them advanced obedience, not advanced basic, but advanced obedience. So what they're doing is they are building on to the foundation that the volunteers have already given the dogs. So, for instance, the volunteer families have taught the dogs to not counter surf in the kitchen and to sit quietly or lay down quietly while the family's eating. Well, in the mess hall, in the prison, that's the exact same behavior. The dogs lay under the table. There's no begging. There's no interaction whatsoever during dinner time. And it might be a little bit longer of a duration of a time than they're used to at home. If the kids had to run off to soccer practice or there was a swim meet tonight, dinner at home with the family and kids could have been a total of 15 minutes, as opposed to sitting down in a more structured environment. It could be a longer duration. So the prisoners and inmates, and what they're able to do is to have that basic obedience be longer duration. They have the time. They have the time available to attend to the dog 24/7. And that dog stays right with them in their cell, sleeps in their crate overnight, goes out to their bathroom. They have structured bathroom times. They have structured class and working times. And so the structure that the inmates bring to the puppies and their training has proven to be very beneficial when the dogs come back here to our training facility for their advanced training.
I see. And I can I see where the structure actually would play into it. And that's it's funny. My knowledge of prison is pretty much anything that had a TV show in prison at best. I would say probably Prison Break is probably the closest I can give you, or that Locked Up show that's on Netflix you'll watch every so often. That's about as much as I have. So I've always been interested to really understand, how does it work, and so that really kind of gives me an idea. And honestly, I want to say the story I read came out of Michigan, so it might have been your program that actually generated that article that I read a couple of years ago or so. From then, I always thought that was an interesting concept.
It really is, and it's a win-win-win situation. It's a win for us, it's a win for the prison, and it's a win for the inmates. What the inmates are finding is that having and again, they have to qualify for this program. Some of the prisons that we work with, those inmates have to be at least 3 years ticket-free, which means no altercations inside, in order to even qualify to apply for the program, and then there's an interviewing process. So it's extremely complex. It's very detailed. And what they're finding is it gives the inmates an opportunity to show some compassion. It gives the inmates an opportunity to develop a life skill that they might be able to use when they come up for probation and are released. Plus, it's a win-win for the prison as well, to be able to put another job listing on their record and on their services as well. And what we've noticed and what the prisons have noticed is with the dogs on site is moods tend to be calmer. Staff member interactions with the inmates tend to be less severe. A lot of staff people on the inside of the prisons where we have the dog programs, they're seeing a shift in, again, moods, relationships, the way people talk to each other. The dog's presence just seems to bring everything down a calmer notch. So on our end, by having the inmates reinforce what our volunteers have already trained the dogs, it saves us time with our professional staff here. So we've actually been able to shorten the time that we've had a dog here in our training facility before we're able to match it and put it out to a client. So it's really been a win-win-win situation.
Well, that's always good. And you know what? I honestly didn't even know, again, another thing I'm taking away from this particular program is, again, you'll probably find it funny, I did not know that they made cabinets and other things like that at prison. So that shows the level of knowledge I have in prison.
It's usually good. You don't necessarily want too much of an inside information.
No.
on something like this, but it is. There's very strategic and very specific products that can be produced. And organizations I know for a fact, like Habitat for Humanity, are the ones that benefit from the cabinet making and the closet making and the wood skills at many of the prisons, at least here in Michigan. So again, it's a win-win situation.
Well, that's a good thing. I mean, again, when I watched the Locked Up documentary, I think it's like a weekly documentary. It was on Netflix. That all you ever see them do is outside or in their cell. So it's actually nice to know that they're actually doing something more than just laying around all day. And probably that's probably something that should be talked about. That hey, you know what? They're not just getting a free ride and getting 3 meals a day and doing nothing for it. So that is something that should be probably brought to attention. I'm glad I actually was able to ask that question. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So here's another unique question: is how much does an assistance dog cost?
That is very unique, and that's something just like anything else in any other industry that's going to vary by organization. At our organization, Paws With A Cause here in Michigan, our clients do not pay anything for their dogs. There is no cost to the clients because we are a nonprofit and we rely on the generosity of donations and donors across the country. There are many organizations out there that will charge a fee. They could charge an application fee. They could charge an equipment fee. They could charge you a flat fee for the dog. And we're talking several $1,000s here. But again, our organization is able to continue to place our dogs at no charge to the client. On average, within our assistance dog industry, one service dog for the lifetime follow-up that we provide has a sponsorship fee of right around $30,000. And that actually, your real costs actually exceed that sponsorship based on markets and based on cost of living. But what that involves is the fully trained, professionally trained dog that's been being raised and trained for nearly 18 months to 2 years before it's placed with the client, as well as that lifetime of follow-up care. And what that is the way we're able to place our dogs around the country is for the simple fact that we work with contract laborers who are dog trainers around the country who are called our field representatives. And once we place a dog, let's say with Joe Blow out in Iowa, we won't place a dog with anyone where we do not have a field representative that would cover that area. So we have one in Iowa. So Joe Blow goes through the application process here, which is pretty complex. We have the interview. We have the needs assessment. The trainers found a great match for him. So they paired Joe and Fido together, trained Fido for 4 to 6 months here, and then we shipped Fido out to our field rep in Iowa. So then that field rep, let's just call her Nancy. Nancy's going to work with Joe Blow and Fido out there for yet another 4 to 6 months so they can learn how to be a successful team. Even though Joe might have owned a dog before, he's never owned a service dog before. He's not going to understand how Fido was trained, what kinds of commands and what kind of body language he as the human half of the partner is going to have to put out in order to communicate with Fido. And that's what Nancy's job is, to do the communication between the two so they can work together to become that successful team.
Wow. And it's just the teamwork that actually works it out. That's probably the only, to me, that would be the backbone to all of it. Now, you had mentioned the applications. Now, I wanted to go into that, but before we do that, because I wanted to actually kind of move around your programs, that's why I wanted to ask about the actual cost, is the next one that I wanted to go into was Pledge Your Birthday. And I think you were alluding to that earlier when you thought I was going to ask that question.
Absolutely. It's one of the many ways that people can support the agency and the work that we do, and it's a very simple thing to do, to give back. It's really a very cool thing, the Pledge the Birthday campaign, when we see that children are doing it. In other words, you sometimes see news reports where, little Bobby Baker, instead of having a birthday party, has gathered dog food for the local shelter, or pledged his birthday to help the rainforest and send money into that. And that's exactly what the Pledge the Birthday campaign is it's an online fundraising tool that anyone can use, and it doesn't even need to be a birthday, but it's just a happy celebration. So it could be an anniversary, it could be a memorial for someone's beloved pet, in honor of high school graduation, in honor of someone graduating from veterinary school. Anytime there's a reason to celebrate or to create an honor or memorial, online fundraising that benefits our organization is a great way to pay it forward to help cover those costs for us to be able to place the dogs for free with our clients.
And, you see it all the time. You see, little shelters in small towns, they're doing it, and it's really very beneficial. And especially with your cause,
Mm-hmm.
it would help a lot of people actually get a service dog, and a lot of people are in a desperate need of it. So that is a great campaign. Now, we had talked about applications. Now, you were saying it's really tricky or difficult. So kind of walk us through what an application typically is like.
Sure. And it's not necessarily difficult as in insurmountable as much as it is complex. There's multiple pieces to it. For the simple fact, as you hopefully will see when I've explained it here, is we need to know a lot about a person. Mm-hmm. So our application is quite extensive, and it's more than just asking your name and where you live and what kind of dog you want. In fact, we don't even ask your preference. We're looking to find out about you as a person. What are your life's goals? What is your disability? We do ask specifically for medical documentation and an affidavit from your primary care physician, because we need to do our due diligence to make sure that our dogs are going to people who truly need the physical help with tasks and their daily living skills. So there's the medical portion of it. We also ask, what would you like your dog to do? We give you some examples of some of the tasks so we can make sure that you have a realistic view of what your dog is going to do, and not an idealized view of what this dog is going to do. We call that the Lassie complex, where yes, Timmy fell down the well, but we need Lassie to go over and push the medical alert button because Timmy fell down the well, not go running through the beautiful countryside. So we ask a lot of questions to make sure that the client's expectations are realistic. And that application also includes specific information, as I mentioned, about your disability, but very realistic questions about what kind of care are you going to be able to give the dog? How much do you think it costs to feed a dog per year? These are the requirements for keeping a dog and for just making sure that the expectations are correct. Once we receive that application and we deem that we have a field representative in that geographic area that could help with the placement of the dog, we then go into an interview process, and that is that field rep going and doing a needs assessment right in that client's home. They meet him in the home, they meet the client, they meet the client's family members, because again, we're painting a realistic picture of where this dog is going to be living. We take a videotape of the entire needs assessment, the entire interview, talking with the client, so we're able to see a client's abilities. We're able to see their range of motion. Let's say if they were a person with a spinal cord injury that uses a wheelchair, we're able to see their range of motion. We're able to see their upper body movements and their abilities to right themselves, sit themselves up, straight up, or right themselves right from left. All these different things are extremely important when we're training the dog to do the tasks. So that video that we have of that interview comes back to our headquarters here, so our trainers actually can get to know the client, get to know the lifestyle and the living quarters that the dog is going to be in. So all of that can be replicated here. So wow. In that application process, they have the written application as well as the videotaped needs assessment. So we can all be on the same page, make sure that our expectations are correct on both ends.
Covering all the bases possible.
Absolutely.
Now, how many requests for assistance dogs does Paws With A Cause receive?
On average, in any 12 years, given 12 months, I should say, in a year, we can send out between 1,000 and 1,200 applications in a given 12 months.
And do you have the dogs to support that?
Absolutely not.
Yeah, I was afraid of that.
The need, absolutely, the need always outweighs the demand.
Hmm.
In that same 12-month time frame, we can place 65 to 75 teams. You can see there's a huge disconnect between the number of people that believe that a dog would enhance their daily living skills and their lifestyle versus what we as an organization, second largest in the country, is able to produce in a quality assistance dog. So there will always be. We would love to put ourselves out of business. We really would. I'd go job shopping tomorrow if that meant that everybody who wanted a dog would have one. So there's a huge disconnect.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's the hard part about it. And one of my last questions is what sort of training and certifications does one of the dogs need to complete to be fully available and ready to be a service dog?
That is the loaded question. Because again, with each dog's unique personality and each client's unique needs, there can be any type of a range of the number of tasks that a dog goes out of here knowing. According to the Americans with Disabilities Act, there is no minimum number of tasks that a service dog or an assistance dog needs to perform. Everything is based upon the client's needs. So we can have a dog go out of here and be placed with a minimum of 4 tasks, and we've had dogs go out of here with them knowing 45 tasks. So it all depends on the needs of the client. As far as the dog's training, we have a minimum training here at our for the advanced training with our professional staff trainers. We have a minimum of 4 months. We don't believe that a quality dog can be trained and proofed in any less time than that. With the addition of the prison program, as I mentioned before, that used to be a minimum of 6 months. So as you can imagine, that helps us tremendously. So it's a minimum of 4 months, and the same as the minimum of 4 months when they're in the field and they're working with their field representative. Again, we don't believe that quality training can take place and can be cohesive enough to be proofed in less than 4 months.
Well, 4 months is still a good amount of time to really develop. So, even if they come out with a minimum amount of abilities, they're still going to make a huge impact in their owner's life, and that's really amazing.
Absolutely.
That's just so amazing to me.
And that 4 months, remember, is built on already them living in 2 different volunteer homes plus the prison program. So when a dog is is basically considered finished and placed with the client, they can be between 2 and 2.5 years old.
And that is where it actually takes the next step. My last question is, how can someone get involved with Paws With A Cause, whether it's, going back to just helping by raising the actual dog or donations or whatever the case is? How can they get involved?
Well, the first thing that they can do is, living in our electronic world, visit our website at pawswithacause.org. And on there it tells all of the different ways that we do need that help. It tells those areas where we do need those volunteers that can house our breeding stock dogs, that can raise our future assistance dogs for the first year of their lives. Our website tells about how to pledge a birthday campaign if you're interested in helping to fundraise, or again, any kind of an honor campaign. We also are very fortunate to have so many people across the country that we call social media ambassadors, which basically is everybody's on social media these days. Like our Facebook page, share it out with people. We're always looking for ways and people to help us spread the word for not only brand awareness for Paws With A Cause, but about quality service dogs as they are across the country. So there's many different ways. Our website also has a donation feature. You can donate right online. Again, it could be a straight donation. It could be an honor or in memory of a friend's pet. Anything along those ways, we have the donation page that you can do right online. So the best bet is our website at pawswithacause.org.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much for doing this.
You are most welcome. Thanks so much for having me on.
Thank you, Deb, for being on the podcast. It was an absolute pleasure to be able to talk to you. I was so excited to be able to learn as much as I did. And my takeaway was dogs do so much, and we really, really, really need to just treat them so much better and get better laws for them.
I've learned so much in this interview. I've learned that there's so many people that it takes to get these pups where they need to be. You see them walking down the street with their service vests on, and you're thinking, okay, what's their job? What do they do?
Now I do.
At first, I thought it was just like a CNI dog or somebody who has panic attacks. No, there's so many more. They do so much more than just one or two jobs. And then each of them have individual training. And the training takes a long time. And by the time they're ready for their actual job, it could be up to 2 years.
Yeah, the 2 years was crazy to me. I mean, that really caught me too.
What really caught me was the fact that the mom and the puppies are left alone for a while so that they can learn from each other, they can learn from mom naturally instead of having a human influence.
Right.
I think that's pretty great.
I thought it was
It
too.
makes all the sense in the world.
The one thing that really threw me, I was just, when doing my research, was the prison. Because that has been something that I've said it so many times on the podcast. I want to talk to somebody that actually have these dogs go to prisons. I did not know how much went on. I didn't realize that the dog slept in the cell with the actual inmate. I didn't even realize that other prisons had specialties. That one built cabinets.
Yeah, you were geeking out over that.
No, I was freaking out. Like, really? What?
No way.
I mean, I don't have any education when it comes to prisons, thankfully.
It's amazing that the inmate has to go through a whole bunch of stuff before they can just, oh, here, take a dog.
Take a dog.
They have to be good. It gives them a reason to follow the rules, to try to get through nicely, and then, hey, look, sometimes you get a dog that you can hang out with and train them, and the better you train this dog, the better that dog's going to save lives, and in karma aspects, undo what you just did and the reason why you're in there.
True.
Just
true. I mean, I still found it to be a cool day. I mean, we were just watching something this past week about, before we were kind of clicking through channels, and it was late, and it was that one prison thing.
Yeah.
I watched those things,
I'm like, those people need a dog.
Those people need a dog.
Those people need a dog to take care of, and I guarantee you they won't be in any trouble. They need a dog to love and care for.
You're crazy. You're crazy. I mean, I saw on Netflix that Locked Up or something. I watched a couple of those, and they freaked me out because I'm just like, I don't understand that world. Thank God. But I also, put this situation to get, to good use going, if they had a dog. It's so hard for me to just look at the dogs now and not think about everything that Deb talked about.
Yeah, and all that the dogs go through. I understand that exact program might not be real big here in Missouri, but you never know. They do this all over the country, and they have their ambassadors and whatnot to go and check out the homes and talk to them and relay information. That's what I was looking for. Relay information.
It makes me a little bit upset that I don't live in Michigan, number one, because I would love to be part of it. But then I think if we were part of it, we couldn't do the rescues and the fosters that we do. So I guess we couldn't.
Well, there's times and places for each person.
Yeah.
Our Hearts in Rescue. What I think is quite nifty is that they have a breeding program.
Yes.
Where they can breed dogs to have a certain type of temperament, a better success rate. I would like to see them taken from the shelter like they did before, but she made a very good point. Sometimes you just can't do that.
Yeah, and I said that, and it's like, I love, adopt kind of situations. But you know, like you said, and you pointed that out because I was thinking about that as you were saying it. I'm like, you know, my heart is always in adopt. But in this case, it probably just isn't going to work. I mean, they tried it. This is
obviously
one of
it didn't work.
Yeah, it didn't work. I mean, look at down to the dogs that are bomb sniffing dogs and stuff like that. They're all bred in a special environment, and it has to be that way. Right. So, you know, I have to kind of go, well, you know, you got to bend for some things, and that's definitely one of them.
And it's totally okay, because the people are benefiting from them so much, saving lives every day. It was great. I learned a lot. I hope everyone else learned a lot.
Me too.
And we do have links and whatnot that you can take to their page and donate to them. Whether you want to donate all your birthday fund to them, or instead
celebratory fun.
There you go.
I was helping you out. I knew where you were going.
You know, there's little kids here in Rolla that love to have birthday parties, and you have to bring a bag of dog food.
Yes.
And that's great. That's awesome. Well, you can also do it for these folks too.
Agreed. I mean, there's so many things that they need. I mean, look at how little in percentage that they're able to fill in applications. You know, the help that they can get will put that service dog in the hands of somebody who really, really needs it. Mm-hmm. You know, so last, before, you know, we sign off, I just have a little bit of things I wanted to tell you. We have a lot of great guests that are coming up in the coming weeks. Mm-hmm. We have a crossover, which is our very first. We have great people from all over the country telling their stories, and I am looking so forward to sharing them with all of you. So with that said, I'm Chris Green. Have a pet-tastic week.
And I'm Sarah Green, making sure everybody realizes life is so short. Play with your pet.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Okay, gotta go in my bedtime.